Hello and welcome to class. Today is January 15th. Before class, you should have ran your audio and video setup. Make sure that you are able to correctly hear and speak during the session as well as see the video. If you have not done so, the directions are on the screen for you to run both your audio and visual video test. As always, make sure you're eliminating your distractions, so make sure your phone is turned off. Make sure you shut the door. Let others know that you're going to be busy so that they do not disturb you during this class session. All right, for today's class, our learning objectives are, by the end of this session, students should be able to identify the similarities and differences between critical and collaborative thinking, identify the positive outcomes of creating a learning community, identify and explain the differences between collaboration and simple interactions. So what I want you to do next is to just pause and think. And what I want you to think about is, what does a successful learning environment look like? So you do not have to write this down. You're just simply thinking to yourself, what does a successful learning environment look like? So take about 30 seconds here and see what you can come up with. All right, well, hopefully you were able to come up with something, and the good thing is whatever you came up with is fine, but we're going to actually look at what a successful learning environment will look like in class today. So hopefully what you thought of kind of mimics what we're going to be learning here in class today. But if it does not, then you are able to open your horizons and kind of learn something new here. The first thing we're going to look at is something called critical thinking. Critical thinking takes place when someone explores, reflects, and analyzes knowledges or ideas. So critical thinking is a very, very difficult task to kind of master, but it is extremely valuable once you do. A lot of employers always say we want someone who can critically think their way through a problem or an issue or some sort of circumstance, but it's not really taught, or it's not really laid out in great detail for everyone. So again, what we're going to be looking at here is critical thinking when someone explores, reflects, and analyzes knowledge and ideas. So along with critical thinking, we can look at something called collaborative thinking. And critical thinking is powerful, but a collection of people critically thinking is always going to outperform a single individual that is critical thinking. So if you can imagine just a single person working on a task that requires critical thinking, they would most likely be able to come up with some sort of solution or response to that task. But if you have a group of people thinking together or collaboratively thinking together, then you're going to have a much more well-rounded outcome and well thought out outcome, because different people are going to look at it from a different perspective and come up with different responses to that same task. So collaborative thinking is just a group of individuals that are critically thinking, and that's going to always outperform a single individual looking at a task that they need to complete. When we look at collaborative thinking is also important because it prevents personal bias. So collaborative thinking will help foster individuals to consider other points of view and prevent personal bias from taking over. So if there's one person working on a project, they're going to come up with an idea and pretty much just work their way through that idea, not really deviate from it much, and whatever they come up with, they're going to obviously go with, and that's going to kind of be the entire direction that response is formed off of. If you have people that are working together collaboratively, then you're going to have more people working on the same task. So you're not just going to have one idea come up and it's going to be the only thing you look at. Others have input. So you're going to try to put all those ideas together, and it's going to prevent one person from taking over or from personal bias. from taking over the entire response. So we've kind of talked about collaborative thinking, but now we're going to actually look at it occurring in action. So in the chat box, I'm going to paste a link for you. And on that link, with that link, you're going to click on the link, and it's going to have a group of individuals kind of explaining how they can use collaborative thinking, and it will allow you to kind of see collaborative thinking occurring in action. So there should be a link in the chat box. It's the same link that you see on your screen, but you're able to click on that link. And when you go to that link, you're going to be able to watch that video and see collaborative thinking actually taking place. So go ahead and take the next, I believe it's about 2.5 minutes to watch that video. And when you are finished, go ahead and resume our class session, and we'll go from there. All right. Thank you for watching that. Hopefully you kind of could make some connections from what we've talked about so far today in class with what the speakers were talking about in their presentation. I know it might have been, even though they're from Australia, they're still speaking English, but they have some of an accent. So hopefully that wasn't an issue for you to understand what was actually going on in the video. So what I want you to do next is pause and reflect. So when you're doing this, I want you to get out a sheet of paper so that you can write down a few things. And what you're going to be thinking about is, from your experiences and what we have discussed thus far in the session, describe critical thinking and why someone would benefit from using critical thinking skills when completing a task. So again, you're going to write down a few things, just jot down some notes. You don't have to say write a paragraph or anything like that. It could just be bullet points, but you're going to think about your experiences and what we've discussed so far, describe critical thinking and why someone would benefit from using it when completing a task. So go ahead and pause the video, jot down some notes, and restart the video once you're finished. All right, so hopefully you were able to come up with some good ideas and kind of reflect on what we've covered so far in class. And we're just going to continue building off of what we've already looked at with critical thinking. And we are now going to look at something called a learning community. A learning community is a place where all members can communicate and have a discussion that leads to positive outcomes. All members must participate for a learning community to be successful. So the easiest way to think of a learning community is to think of anytime you are assigned group work. So typically in group work, if there are 4 partners and the task you're working on has 4 different parts, a lot of times what you'll see is each partner will take one part. They'll each do their individual part, and then once it's finished, they'll kind of combine everything to make a final project. In a learning community, that's not exactly the most effective way of learning a new task. Might be easier to get things done and just to turn the project in or turn the assignment in, but if you're only working on one task, you're not getting the full benefit from doing the actual assignment. So if we go back and think about collaborative thinking, if each partner were to work together and kind of give their input on each of the different parts of the problem or parts of the assignment, then obviously you're going to prevent the personal bias from occurring. But what you're also going to do is um, you'll have more cohesion throughout the entire assignment, to where it doesn't seem like one thing kind of jumps from one thing to the next whenever you go from different parts of the assignment to the other parts. So in a learning community, all members must participate for a learning community to be successful. And you can also think of just any sort of class you would go back to in high school, and There's always certain people that worked, there's always certain people that didn't work. In that case, there's not a very strong leader, and that leader is not helping that learning environment or learning community be as successful as possible. In a learning community, you must have leaders. So if we look at this picture here, we can think of the leader as the one kind of giving everyone the direction or helping lead them in the right direction to accomplish their goals. So a learning community has to have a leader that will keep the group headed in the correct direction to accomplish their goals. A lot of times with group work, if there's no sort of guidance, you might get going and it seems great for the group, but you might not actually be covering everything that the assignment wants you to cover. So you might not be meeting those goals. If you're not meeting those goals, then obviously you're not going to accomplish the task completely. So in this case, you need some sort of leader, which is that person on top of the arrow there, kind of guiding everyone in the correct direction so that even if they do start to get off task, they can quickly be redirected so it doesn't affect the entire assignment. So a learning community in action. The learning community must have collaborative thinking, not just a set of tasks that get completed and compiled to make a bigger task. So this kind of goes back to whenever I was talking about the 4 different partners and 4 different parts of the assignment. If they all 4 complete them individually and then combine them to make the bigger assignment in the end, it's not going to be the best possible outcome or best possible product from that assignment. What you want to do is each person needs to work together or collaboratively and critically think through each task as they go along so that everyone has input and there's much more cohesion in the entire project, as well as a much more well-rounded and well thought out final product. So again, we're going to pause and reflect here. Just like the last one, I want you to jot down a few things. It could be bullet points or just some keywords, whatever it might be on a sheet of paper. But I want you to pause the video and think about why would one take the time to create a learning community, and why would a learning community value collaborative thinking? Why would someone create a learning community, and why would a learning community value collaborative thinking? When you are done, restart the video and we will continue moving on. All right, so hopefully you were able to realize how important collaborative thinking is and how much it's going to actually help a learning community or a group of students working to accomplish the same task. So we've talked a lot about what things might be, but we haven't actually looked at what they might look like in a classroom. So if you think about what we've talked about, just by being in a classroom, critical thinking and collaboration does not just happen. These skills need to be planned and they need to be practiced. So if you just show up to a class and the assignment was to read this chapter and answer these questions at the end, yeah, there might be some critical thinking going on, and yeah, there might be some collaboration going on, but it might not be to benefit the students learning the material. It might be that 2 or 3 students that are um, doing well, they are critically thinking, but the rest of the class is not. You might also have a few people working together to try to get the questions completed, but they're just answering the questions and they're not trying to actually broaden their knowledge on those topics. So it doesn't just occur. It has to be planned and it has to be practiced. And those are 2 things that must be done by the teacher. Collaborative thinking doesn't just happen. And in the classroom environment, you can set up an environment so that it can help promote more collaboration and promote a learning community. But it's going to be very difficult to do that if the teacher is not leading the way they should be leading. So by setting up your classroom to where it's not just rows and columns of desks, but you actually set them up to where they're always going to be working with a partner, and you've got a seating chart to help promote interaction between those two individuals, and you're trying to get the class to buy into whatever you're trying to teach. There's all sorts of things that go into planning a class that will make it um, make more collaboration happen, as well as promote the learning community to actually work together and benefit from the collaborative and critical thinking. So most people think that a teacher can just make students collaborate. However, students need to be able to communicate and learn with each other. So if I have a student in my class and or several students in my class that are in a group, and I just hey, you have to work together to get this done, that's probably not going to change how they're working on a project whatsoever. But if I designed a project to where um, partner A completes some sort of task and then partner B has to have a detailed explanation of what partner A did, then they're going to obviously have to communicate. When they're communicating, that promotes the collaboration. Also, whenever they're talking about what each other is doing, what each other has done, they can kind of see, oh, well, I think you might have made a mistake here, so then the critical thinking also occurs. So the way that the teacher sets up the classroom actually can help promote more collaborative thinking and a positive learning community. All right, so this next step, you're going to have to email me, and the reason why I want you to email me is I want this to be a little bit more well-rounded response. You're just not going to jot a few things down. So in a paragraph or two, explain how your classroom incorporates and promotes critical thinking and collaboration. Also, think of some areas for improvement that could help improve the learning community for your students. So again, pause and pause your video here, and you're going to email me your response to this topic here. So go ahead and pause it. You can take up to however long you need to do it, but make sure that it's a little bit more well-rounded and a better detailed response. All right, so I look forward to seeing those emails. Just because one person does something a certain way doesn't mean it always works for everyone else, or someone else may not have thought of that. So I look forward to reading your emails because I can learn something new from you guys, and maybe you have something that you think you can improve on that I think I can do successfully, and I can kind of share some information with you guys to help promote something in your classroom. All right, so let's think about what we've learned today. We've learned that critical thinking along with collaborative thinking helps students explore, reflect, and analyze the information that is being taught. We've learned that a learning community allows for knowledge to be shared and personal bias to be overlooked. We've also learned that collaboration involves students actually working together on the same task instead of completing multiple tasks together to accomplish a final goal. Some of the resources that we've used today are our textbook on collaborative thinking by Garrison, as well as the video that you watched on YouTube. And that is all for today's class. I would like to thank you, and as always, if you do have any questions after watching this class session, be sure to email me and I will get back to you shortly. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.